Wendy, you use the word "we" quite often for people who think like you. So would it be right that the CWA is part of a sort of wider constituency within America?
Yes, we represent 500,000 ourselves, but that's just a drop in the bucket of the number of people who believe similarly. And we find that as these challenges come up, say in school districts, that there are a number of parents and families and communities who will rise up in concern over the fact that only evolution is allowed to be taught and not the questioning of evolution. So it's quite widespread in the United States. The belief that human beings are distinct is a widespread belief in the United States. And that's remarkable because evolution has been so heavily taught in the last number of decades. And the fact that it's being taught so strongly and isolated from other information or evidence, and yet many people continue to believe that God has a hand in creating us, I think helps to show that people are using their critical factories. They're not just believing what's being taught in the schools, and that evolutionism is going to continue to have a bit of a challenge here in the United States and beyond.
You have doomed us, you dumb bitch. People like you have fucked us over. America's fucked if you are what we are to become.
I've been reading your website, and I get the feeling there's almost a feeling of sort of persecution. I mean, as though somehow you feel that the establishment in the United States is against Christianity. That puzzles me a bit because, I mean, you know, you've got the White House, you've got the Supreme Court, you've got well, you had both houses of Congress until quite recently. How can you feel persecuted in the face of this overwhelming Christian dominance in the United States?
Yeah. Many Christians have experienced the hostility toward our beliefs, but beyond hostility, the attempts to even censor and punish us for our beliefs. And the price of liberty is eternal vigilance.
Her quote is, "The price of liberty is eternal vigilance." Well, that is quite different than the free will that you claim God gave us. It's all the same. She doesn't actually have to say that talk about the free will thing. She doesn't have to say anything about it because we know what the entire creationist argument is already. Because we've hit this argument from every angle and every direction before, and they've deflected as best they can from every direction already. So we already know what our argument should be and what their counter argument will be. And we should just, you know, give up. I'm not going to give up. I have to finish this. I have to finish this, even though it probably will cause me. I mean, look at me. I'm graying here. I'm turning into an old man trying to do that. I'm Obama trying to deal with the Republicans, except I'm Coctopus trying to deal with fucking creationists.
That we must continue to fight for our freedom in order to have it. And even though some may believe that the three branches of government reflect our views, that's not necessarily the case. But let me give you my own experiences. A number of years ago, I was praying in public across the street from an abortion clinic and was sentenced to 6 months in jail for simply praying. It's these kinds of experiences.
Excuse me, you were sentenced to 6 months in jail for praying?
For praying.
Could we get a bit more detail about that?
Sure. A judge had signed an injunction stating that certain things could not be done within 100 feet of abortion clinics in that city, in Houston. And so 4 of us knelt and prayed across the street from the clinic, and the judge sentenced us to 6 months in jail and a $500 fine.
What law was that?
It was an injunction, and an injunction is essentially a judge-made law. It only applies to certain people. I was not named on the injunction, and yet the judge found me guilty of it. Thankfully, she was overturned by a higher court.
Let's just do us all a favor and ignore the actual, like, what happened with the actual praying and the injunction and what happened at the abortion clinic and all this kind of crap. And let's just focus on how great is your God if the country that you think he is blessed, God bless America, won't even allow you to pray to him to do the things you think he wills. You understand? Like, how about, you've got this thing where it's either, if God does something good, or you do something and you don't get punished, then it's in the Lord's name. But if you do something and you get punished, then you're just being persecuted. You're still doing it in the Lord's name. Oh, and it's just a test then. Otherwise, God wanted it that way. If God wants it, it happens. If he doesn't want it, then it's a test. And it just doesn't happen for you. It's sick the way that you guys twist things around. And I believe you are actually sick enough in the head to believe the lies you are telling yourself. Unfortunately for you, nobody else is buying into those lies.
But there are experiences like that throughout the United States where certain people are told and punished for acting out their beliefs. And it's those kinds of cases that make us very sensitive to protecting all of our liberties.
50 bucks says this bitch is against the Ground Zero Mosque. She's a fucking hypocrite. She's got a double standard. She's got an agenda to push, and she doesn't care about anyone but herself and the people that think like her. Fuck her. Fuck everyone like her.
I can't help feeling the context must have been. Had that abortion clinic been threatened with firebombing or anything like that?
No, it had none. It had not. There were protests that were going on during that time. Now, the abortion clinic had argued to the judge that women would be intimidated from coming into the clinic if there were protesters outside. Well, at the same time that 4 of us were quietly kneeling in prayer with no signs or anything like that, there were about 100 pro-abortion demonstrators in front of the clinic blocking the entrance, screaming and yelling with signs and bullhorns. But it was those of us who were quietly kneeling in prayer who were sentenced to 6 months in jail. So I think maybe you can understand then why we are so sensitive to wanting to protect our religious freedoms and the ability to act on our consciences, because we do have cases like this where people have been punished for acting on their beliefs.
First of all, you just admitted that you, in fact, weren't punished, that another judge overturned that ruling, so you weren't actually punished. So what the fuck are you talking about? Second of all, I guarantee that you would punish people of other beliefs for doing things or being, prejudiced against. You don't care about, I guarantee you, she doesn't care about Muslims being prejudiced against. She does not care about that. She is all for it, in fact, because it's another religion and it threatens the reality, how real her religion can be, because her religion can only be so real if there are so many different forms of it, right? Only one can be true. They can't all be right. So the more religions are out there, the more threatening it is to your own personal religion. You want to bash on every religion and atheism, and only you're right. God, how sad a life it is to sit there and defend your religion throughout, instead of accepting the facts, coming to terms with reality, just to sit there and defend the same bullshit your entire life. Doesn't it get old? I don't know. There's only one person I could think of to ask that question. Wendy, does it get fucking old to sit there and say the same bullshit over and over and over for the rest of your life, and you think that's going to get you into heaven somehow or some bullshit? It's really fucking pathetic. It's sad. I mean, really sad. I mean, I feel like I'm picking on a retard because you just don't fucking get it. And unfortunately, you cannot have the upper hand here. We have to say you are wrong. We have to prove you wrong. I have to point out the flaws in your arguments. I have to call you an idiot so that other people do not follow in your fucking retarded footsteps.
Yes, I can't comment on a particular anecdote like that, of course. Just want to come back one more time to the idea of teaching the controversy. In science, we're well used to controversy, and we have controversy all the time. Since Darwin's time, plenty of things that Darwin thought have now been shown to be wrong. I mean, Darwin was completely wrong about genetics, for example. And so there are modern controversies in Darwinism. There are controversies between people who think that natural selection is all important in driving evolution. And there are people who think that natural selection is only part of it, and that there are other things that drive evolution. Nobody seriously doubts the fact of evolution, but there are controversies about whether evolution is largely driven by natural selection or only partly driven by natural selection. For example, there are controversies about whether evolution goes smoothly and continuously, or whether it goes in jumps, whether there are sort of long periods where not much evolution happens, and then a rather sudden burst of evolution which represent a kind of step in the fossil record. Those are genuine controversies, and of course it's extremely right and proper that children should be taught those controversies. But when you say teach the controversy, by which I think you mean the controversy between science on the one hand and probably biblical creation on the other, there are lots and lots of creation myths. I mean, the Genesis myth just happens to be the Babylonian Jewish myth, which for historical accident reasons is largely prevalent in the United States. But I mean, why not teach the Hindu myth that we're the product of a cosmic butter churn, or an Australian Aboriginal myth that we come from the dream time? Why pick on the Judeo-Christian Babylonian myth?
Well, we have argued when we say teach the controversies in evolution, and to teach the evidence that shows intelligent design. I'm not aware of people arguing that they ought to, that in public schools it ought to be taught the biblical accounts of creation.
Then you haven't been paying attention, dummy.
So what
really?
when we say teach the controversy, we mean teach all the evidence, including the evidence that goes against evolution, teach the evidence for intelligent design.
Who do you think the intelligent designer was?
Well, see, that's something that I think scientists can debate.
No, the idea of who the intelligent designer was cannot be debated by scientists. Do you understand? Scientists cannot debate about what color the teapot orbiting Pluto is. They cannot talk about these things because they don't have the facts or evidence in order to talk about them. That shit is made up by people like, oh, I don't know, religious people, creationists like yourself.
But the idea that there was an intelligent design to the process, in fact, what you've mentioned regarding even natural selection, and that there could be somebody or something that put all these laws in place that now the world is operating off of, does back up this idea that it was a being, an intelligent being, that caused all this, the whole world, to happen.
He asked you why you wouldn't want to teach every creation story instead of just the biblical story from Genesis. And your answer is that you, first of all, have never heard that it's just the biblical story trying to be taught. And that second, that science provides evidence that intelligent design is the truth simply because it has gaps in it, and therefore intelligent design is plausible, and therefore your idea of how we were designed is the truth, and that is the controversy you're trying to teach. You got to be fucking kidding me.
I mean, that's what a bishop might say. I wouldn't say that, but there are plenty of Christians who would say that. Wouldn't your life be a lot easier if you went along with the bishops and said the evidence in favor of the fact of evolution is overwhelming, so let's accept it and bring God in there?
I think one issue is this idea that we take orders from a hierarchy.
Okay, no,
and there are some bishops that believe like you do, and there are other bishops that don't,
yes,
that believe differently.
No.
And so it's easy to select those who believe like you do and rely wholly as if they speak for everyone.
Yes.
But those bishops don't speak for all Christian
okay, I mean,
leaders.
I accept that, and I would hate to suggest that you take orders from authority. I do wish you look at the facts a bit more, though. I mean, they are actually very interesting. I mean, you'd be fascinated. Just read
yes,
a book.
I think, well, I find that to be quite demeaning to claim that we don't read books, or that we don't know what evolution is, when in fact most of us have been through the museums that you and your folks have put together.
Oh, you see, well, therefore I can't hold you to any fault, because you and the people that believe like you have been through the museums that Dawkins and his folks have put together. You see, Dawkins and his folks, just like-minded people that believe in facts, evidence, scientific study, things like that. It's only them who put together the fucking museum that you then claim, oh, I walked through that museum one time and I was too fucking retarded to understand what they were fucking trying to teach me. Therefore, that teaching doesn't fucking exist. Fucking asshole.